welcome to this Wednesday night broadcast here at
Table Talk.
Table Talk number 32, are we?
I think so.
32, yeah, you
32,
betcha.
we're climbing.
Absolutely, we're climbing, you
Yes.
betcha. Glad to have you with us here, whether you're tuned in live or you're watching us
Yes.
after the broadcast is made.
Yeah, joining the conversation.
We are glad that you've joined us, and we're thankful that we have an opportunity to come into your home on your social media pages and things like that. One of the purposes, again, just to remind us of what our whole goal is this table talk is to talk about real life stuff and how we can make the most of what is around us and be everything that God's created us to be. And part of that is navigating through difficulties. Part of that is navigating through stuff that we can't control. And sometimes it's just learning to make adjustments along the way. And we've been having some great discussion here.
Yes.
We're planning to have some guests here in the next little while, probably. We're in the making anyway. And again, dealing with the same idea of just talking about relevant real life stuff. One of the things I've been saying all along is to be most effective, people want real.
Yeah.
And many times we can hide behind masks, we can hide behind religion, we can hide behind, a certain theology of our viewpoint of how we look at things.
Yeah.
And I am encouraged that in the midst of all that, God loves who we are.
Yeah.
Not who we want to perceive ourselves to be.
The real us.
The real us. The one that meets the rubber where the road is and dealing with that kind of stuff. And so that's what this idea of this table talk is, just talk about real life issues. And we're so glad that you can join us. My name is Geoff.
I'm Helen.
And we're coming to you live from the SFN Church. We've got 1920 Wellick Road, number 32. We are going to jump right into it because we are going through some a neat topic that I think might take a few weeks to go through maybe. We'll build on it, but we titled this session Pushing Through Your Limits. And that is an important subject because all of us at one point in our life have faced limitations. And how we view those limitations and how we work with those limitations and how we push through those limitations says a lot about our character, says a lot about what we believe, it says a lot about how we think about ourselves. All those things are really, really important, and especially living in this whole dynamic shift in our world. These things are really, really prevalent, and sometimes we can stay stuck. And by staying stuck, I'm meaning we don't move from where we are because we see limitations and we're afraid and
feel trapped.
Trapped is a big one. Self-doubt, insecure. I mean, it takes us going through difficulties oftentimes that really reveals where some of the root lying issues are, whether it's relationship, whether it's working, whether it's how I feel valued, or am I contributing, doing my part, or am I just existing? All of those play key roles when we're talking about limitations. And one of the things we are purposing to do in our table talks is to give you tools and hope. We've been saying that many, many times because I don't know about you, but you turn on the TV, all you hear is negative. Whether it's CBC, CTV, CNN, it makes no difference. Everything we hear and see is just negative. And it's always...
Sometimes it's on Facebook, sometimes it's people around you.
And the last thing we want to do is go along that trend, because I don't do well. Personally, I don't do well when I hear just negative. It's easy for me to spiral down a trail, and I find myself staying stuck and not able to push through the things that are in front of me. And we've been saying this all along. We are created to be great. We are created to dream. We are created to overcome obstacles. We're created to deal with failure, deal with insecurity. We're created by God to live as overcomers. But the reality sometimes is it's hard to look at reality and knowing where I could be. And I think when we come to pushing through limitations, this is a key one that we need to just have conversation about. And
because we all feel it.
Yes, we do.
I hear it. I hear it around me. I see it on Facebook. We see it, And we feel it.
Yeah.
We feel sometimes our own limitations, and sometimes it just stops us in our tracks. And sometimes we dig a little hole, maybe
I think that's the reality.
Make a
I
puddle
think
and splash around.
being honest and real, I
Yep.
think it's a lot easier in moments like that to dig a little hole and sit there
Yes.
and feel sorry for
Yeah.
myself and wish
Yes.
things were better. And part of living and pushing through limits is we recognize where we are. It doesn't help denying where we're at. If we're struggling, we need to be honest with that. I'm struggling. If we're in a hole, we need to understand that we're in a hole, we're in a rut, and we don't see a way through. And it's important to understand that, because part of healing and part of breakthrough in life understands where we're at. Mm-hmm. The difference is, at least I find for myself, the difference is knowing where you're at and settling there, opposed to knowing where you're at, determined to learn and grow so that I don't stay where I'm at.
I love that you said that. Determined to learn and grow.
Life is full of growth. Relationships are part of growth. How we relate to people is about growth. How we function is about growth. We see society shifting and changing all the time.
And we see it in everything that's around us. Everything that's created starts as a seed, or, you know, can you imagine if we did not grow? We'd all be these little babies, no growing. We are created to grow.
And part of growing,
created to learn.
I think it's important to establish too.
Yeah.
Growing isn't just improving where you are or reinstating where you are. Growing means you're getting out of the system you're in and expanding your thinking, expanding your life to other things that are out there. That's part of growth. Doesn't mean we accept everything that's going out there, no. But growing sifts through the stuff, and it changes where we're going. It changes who we are in the sense of understanding what matters. And I think many times our life can be not in balance. We have so many things going on that we teeter one way, and then we teeter another way, and then we feed more information, we teeter another way. And I think imbalance is a good word, because we're living in such an information age, and the thing is, the stuff that we have to compute on a daily basis, the information that we get thrown at us, if we're not careful and learn to filter what comes in, we're going to be out of balance. And that can be in any walk of life. A person can be a person of faith that can live out of balance, because they're so glued one way and expect things to be a certain way that it creates an imbalance in their life. And I know for certain that God wants us to live balanced. In other words, we know what's coming in, what's going out. We're careful what we're filtering through and allowing to penetrate us in our life and our minds, because how we think, we've talked about this, is a direct result in how we live. What we believe will always manifest in what we do.
It's going to become our reality.
It's going to become our reality. And so we want to talk about pushing through our limitations. Limitations can be so many different things. It can be physical, it can be mental, it can be all those different things. The limits are a mirror. They're a mirror that show us we can't go any further. But when we break the mirror and see a different perspective, we know that we don't have to stay where we're at. And that's important for me in my life and my walk with God, because I don't want limits to hold me back. I want them to be opportunities for me to rise up and push through some of those things. And so that's important for us to talk about. And so we want to talk about pushing through your limits. How do we push through? Now, we may not be detailed, but we want to give you a scope that's helped us. And in turn, that may help you. If it does, we're honored about that. And sometimes I'm learning in my life, it's not about always having the right answers or always the right direction or always have the perfect this or the perfect that.
The perfect choice, the perfect decision.
And the perfect theology and all that other stuff that we so like to dig our fingers in for security. isn't it. And so we have to learn that our limits are not our holding back, but the limits are our potential to grow through.
And I believe that our mindsets, our belief systems create walls of limitation. And you know what? I believe that most of our limitations are in our mindsets.
Absolutely. By far.
Because that's what we believe, and that becomes our reality. So, and
I've been saying change
the
way you think, you're going to change your life.
Because I, like, going back, honey, I so loved my feeling of safety and comfort that I didn't want to get out of that box. Most of us don't, but guess what? We don't grow there.
No.
There is no growing when we stay in our safe, comfortable little zone. That changed when we got married.
Yeah.
And those boxes started falling, and our journey has been so many times of coming up against limits in relational, financial.
And the biggest struggle when we face these limits is my mindset about them. When we came to a financial limit, not that we were overspending, but we were in a bad economy, often like where we're kind of working through ourselves right now, right? As a province and as a city, and just the different dynamics of decisions being made and situations happening. But we see the limits. Yeah. And the biggest stumbling block or breaks in my life was how I seen those limits.
Yes.
The limits spoke to me.
Yeah.
You cannot enter.
Yeah.
This is as far as you can go.
Yeah.
And sometimes my belief system says I can't go further because this is the truth and I have to stay here come hell or high water. When all those limits were telling me was to keep me staying where I was. And the more that I allow the limits to hold me back, I lose out on the opportunities where my life can yet take off to. And that's been true for faith. That's been true with how I look at life in general. It's true how I view relationships.
Yeah.
Those limits are so important for us to tackle.
Yep.
So let's tackle them.
Okay.
We're just gonna talk about three things that are very practical that will help you as it's helped us, and it's still helping us because I have to constantly revisit some of this stuff. I remember you saying sometimes you need to listen to some of your own messages because you're just not.
I think we
working.
need to go back and listen to that table talk, honey.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're up against something here.
Absolutely. And so the three things that we want to leave with you help you push through limits. There are many others, but there's three profound areas that I think are really help liberate us and open our concept of we can go further, we can reach, and we can overcome. And so the first thing that we want to talk about is when we're pushing through limits, we've got to learn to take a deep breath. We've got to learn to take, that's not the first point, that's just a teaser to get into the first point. We've got to learn to take a deep breath. I find myself when I'm in that spot, the last thing I think about is stepping back and breathing. I get panicked. I'm stopped. I'm cornered. I can't go any further.
Anxiety comes.
Anxiety, fear,
trappedness. Like you just
all
feel
those
like
emotions can go through minds when we face those limitations. And if we don't learn, to breathe. Now, I'm not meaning holding your breath, but to breathe, actually allow ourselves to process. The world is not coming to an end. The situation isn't going to swallow us. But to take a step back, to breathe, is so important because key number one to pushing through our limits is we've got to learn to face our fears. We've got to learn to face our fears. For so much of life, and I think many people can testify to that, is we tend to run from our fears, protect ourselves from our fears, and as a result, it limits us. We've got to face our fears. We tend to run from them, but we need to go after them.
What are we afraid of when we come to that limitation? I was thinking of that. When it feels like you've come to a limitation, why am I sometimes afraid? Because I've never learned to to walk in that place. It's a new place of walking. When you're pushing past limitations, and that brings a fear because I don't know.
Right.
I've never learned that.
Yes.
But guess what? When we begin to see that limitation as an opportunity and face your fear, eyeball to eyeball, face your fears. Become self-aware. What am I afraid of?
I remember, I think it was 2 Sundays ago, I spoke on Joshua chapter 1, where Joshua was given the responsibility now to lead his people into the land that God called them to. And they wandered for 40 years, and I'm sure that they wondered if that was going to actually be true. And I think Joshua must have faced some of that too, because in that passage of Scripture, God reminds Joshua 3 times, be strong and courageous. Be very strong and courageous. And then he says, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous?
Paul, yeah.
And so it was almost like Joshua had to breathe, take a step back, not allow his limitations to be his boundary, but rather to recognize if he's to grow and if he's to succeed, if he's going to take this thing to the next level, his limitations, he needed to push his limitations. It's almost like God was saying, hey, I understand what you feel. I understand that you have fear. I understand that this is something that's probably you think is beyond you. And for God to show that confidence to Joshua in Joshua chapter 1 to say, listen, you be strong and courageous.
I love that, because you know what? Sometimes when we're not confident in ourselves, when we face that limitation, God has confidence in us. He knows who we are. He knows what he's given us. He knows what's inside of us. And he's like, face your fear. Take up strength right now. It's in you. And take up courage.
That's the important thing is, God knew that Joshua had the strength. He had the courage.
Joshua maybe didn't know it.
Joshua maybe not recognized it, but God was just affirming to Joshua, you have it inside of you. I've given you the ability. We just need to awaken that. And so Joshua had to face his fears. He had to push past that limitation. And when God says be strong and courageous, he wasn't saying now that you have to effort and work for it and plan for it and pray for it. He was awakening something that was already inside of him. And that's the powerful truth. God never points out to our failure, but he always points out to our reality. You have it in you. This is not a limit for you. This is an opportunity. You pick up what I've given you and you run with it. And so Joshua had to face his fears. And you asked a great question. What are we afraid of? I think sometimes, being honest, I think we're afraid to succeed. Because so much of our life has been defined by failure, perhaps. And it's unfamiliar territory. We don't know what to do with success. We want it. In our perspective, we want to be successful. But I think sometimes we're afraid that we are, because then we don't know what to do. And I want to tell you tonight that you have it in you. God has given it to you because he believes in who he created you to be. And the limits are just a mirage to keep us where we're at. And I want to encourage you, don't stay there. Face your fears. I was going to go back to the word be strong and courageous. Courage is the ability to look at what you're afraid of and keep pushing through. That's what courage is. We see it around. Man, that was a courageous thing to do.
I know.
What had to happen? He had to face that fear, or she had to face that fear. And courage pushed them over. Strength. It's not self-mustered. It's rather stirring up what God's given you. And so facing our fears. There's a second thing that we need to talk about too. Not only facing our fears, but this is important. This is very simple, but it's important. And I wrote down here, believe in your success. For so long in my life, I was taught you can't believe in your success because you are nothing.
It's a wrong view of humility.
A very wrong view of humility, and that's not the picture. We have to believe in our success, because God created us to succeed. And so I want to believe in that. And if I believe in that, then I can see beyond the obstacle in front of me. I can see what's in front of me.
Yes.
Our limitations.
Yes. And believing in our success, it's a journey. It's not an end result. Sometimes we are waiting for the end result. Oh, now I'm successful.
Right.
No, the journey is to be successful.
Yes.
Believing that today I'm successful.
Absolutely.
Today, whether I crash and view it as a failure or as like, I am learning, I am growing. That is success.
Absolutely.
It's our wrong view of what success looks like.
Many times if we were asking the question, and I would answer it that way too years ago, that success is the prize at the end of the race, or it's the reward after you've accomplished something. Success isn't what's at the end.
No.
Success is what's going on to get to that end.
Yes.
And again, that speaks life. It gives me encouragement knowing that this process is success.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that, because we are always in process.
Yep.
Unless we allow limitations to stop us, then the process doesn't go any further.
Yep.
And we dig ourselves a hole and we stay stuck. And I believe with my heart, if people could understand that truth, they would experience a liberty inside of them, even though things around them seem to hold them in. And that's what I think is so powerful. And I think that's what Jesus Christ came to establish, was nothing outside of who we are, God's created us, can hold us back.
There are no more limitations.
Absolutely
Remember,
not.
like that verse in Ephesians that says, him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly more than we think, ask, imagine. Like he's breaking limitations
But somehow,
of how we think.
Somehow we can read something like that, and we can put limits on that.
Yeah.
We create theologies that this is it, this is all, this is and this is what it's supposed to look like. And so when something different shows up that's been readjusted, then we reject it. And so we allow that limit to stop us.
Yeah.
And we want people to know that they can be limitless. They can be free. And that freedom is from the inside. Nothing to do with what's going on, but on the inside. And when you're free,
Look out.
you have nothing. Nothing will hold you back.
No.
You're not afraid of what people will think or what people will say, because you are being who you are.
It's called FOPO, which is fear of people's opinions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing is, sometimes people's opinions, our own belief systems are the only thing that's put that wall up of limitation.
Yeah.
So believing in our success is huge.
Just
honey.
even going through and talking about what we were going to talk about when we were sitting down and visiting a little bit and just kind of putting our thoughts together, I was challenged because I've learned to live within my limits.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live within my limits, because then it holds me back. And so I want to tackle those things, and so I need to deal with the fears. I need to deal with those fears that are holding me back, whether it's opinions from other people, whether if it's something shifts drastically in my life and I don't know what to do, I have to push through those fears. And while I'm doing that, I have to believe in my success. I have to believe that I'm created to succeed, and apply those principles that God speaks over my life, so that becomes a reality.
It's almost like when a tree is growing, honey, we want the end result, which is the apples, but it's successful, it's growing. All of a sudden the branches come, the leaves are coming, it's growing, birds are starting to live there. It's all successful. The whole process is success.
For the longest time, I've been struggling with enjoying my journey, because I've had a picture of what that journey should look like. And as long as I have a picture of what that journey should look like, I get disappointed because I see it unfolding differently. I see it unfolding differently.
And how many people has that happened to? Is our life is not what we actually intended or planned for?
Right.
But we are created to learn and grow. And all of a sudden there's a new stream that is actually making its own pathway
Yeah.
into something new, and we're afraid because it's unfamiliar.
Yeah.
But that's where we learn and grow.
That's where we
and
learn
we
and
are
grow.
created to believe that we are going to succeed.
I like what you said here before. You made a
Yeah.
statement. There's a fixed mindset or there's a growth mindset. A
Yeah.
fixed mindset is this is it. I'm staying parked here. A growth mindset is I'm not staying here.
No.
I'm going to learn to develop as I walk this out.
Yes.
And I think that's where we begin to learn to experience life at a whole different dynamic than when we're fixed.
Yep. And you know what? Even our adventure, we had a little bike adventure here a week ago. It was amazing. But last year, what did I say? I'm never taking a bike trip. Sorry, honey. You're on your own. I'm not getting any gear, nothing. I'm not doing it. It's uncomfortable, like it's windy. I can't talk to you, can't relax. I had all the excuses. I'd never. But something changed. And I feel like it's been through this time that's not been that great. The last few months.
Yeah,
it's been hard.
It's been hard.
And it's been a struggle and a challenge on my view and my belief, but something changed in me. All of a sudden, I became aware I am created to grow and try and learn.
Yeah.
And something switched in my belief system, and all of a sudden, I believed I actually want to go on this new adventure and go on a bike trip. And guess what?
We had a lot of fun, didn't we?
I had a blast.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know what? I had a fixed mindset last year, and this year something switched, and I enjoyed something I thought I never could.
That's right, yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, pushing
The
through
experience.
those. Yeah. The third thing that we want to just leave with you as our time is coming to a close. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And that has to do, the third thing is don't give up. Learn to adjust and readjust. If we're determined to grow through our life experiences, it's gonna include adjusting and readjusting. That's part of it. And the sooner we can understand that, the sooner it becomes a reality in our life, the sooner that we understand that that's where it is, the quicker we grow and fall into this journey.
Sometimes when the limitations show up, there's growing pains.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have resisted growing pains. Some of us resist pain to all extent. We don't want to feel pain, so we just want to stay in our safe, nice zone.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happens? We get stuck there. And we want to give up because we don't want to go through the pain of growing.
Yeah. I have a note here that says, don't give up, learn to adjust and readjust.
Yeah.
And then I have this point here that I scribbled down here. Life is for learning.
Yeah.
Never stay stuck.
Yeah.
Because you'll stop growing. And sometimes my idea of growth is just improving the circle that I'm in. It's just improving the little vortex that I have in which my life functions. It's just improving, rearranging the furniture. But it's not that. It's readjusting. Sometimes it's expanding the building. Sometimes it's making additions. Sometimes it's expanding this side, expanding that side, learning to grow and develop. And what you do in the midst of that, you learn to appreciate everything that comes in your
and
path.
Sometimes your whole system actually totally crashes and the whole building falls to the ground and you actually have to create a new building. And you know what? That is growth.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's painful, but don't give up. We are created to grow and learn. We're created for it.
Fixed mindset or a growth mindset. How do we view, questions to answer yourself as we close, how do you view your limitations? What are some things in your life that has limited you from actually succeeding in an area that you've never attempted before? What mindset do you have that needs to be developed so that you can be everything God's created you to be? Because we are meant to push through our limitations. Thank you so much for joining us. It's just great to have this time together with you, and have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you Wednesday.
We will see you next Wednesday. And you know what?
What's
I was
that?
thinking, honey, if any of you have things that you would like us to chat about that would be really relevant and a good use that you could use some tools for,
sure,
send us a message, because we want to be here for our community. And our
absolutely,
listeners, we want to interact with you guys.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Awesome.
But
Thank you
thanks for
again.
joining us tonight,
Have
guys.
a great night. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.